Genocide is from the Greek word genos. It means a tribe or a group of people. And it's, the suffix is killing, wipe out. You're wiping out. So we've seen that. We've seen it before with the effort of the Turkish government to try to destroy Armenians as a people. We've seen it, as you said, with the Uyghur. And we've seen it, of course, with the Holocaust. It's a massive effort to kill thousands of people. But when they use that term for the Middle East, then you think Israel is engaged in a systematic effort to wipe out the Palestinian people, and you say to yourself, well, 21% of Israel is Palestinian, and they have the highest standard of living outside the Persian Gulf, and they have more rights of voting. They have political parties. They form the opposition in a way that's impossible in Gaza, impossible in Syria, impossible anywhere else in the Arab world. That's not fitting the definition of genocide. And when you look at the conduct of war, if Israel wanted to conduct genocide, they wouldn't be phoning people or dropping leaflets to get away. And the people who would be subject to genocide would not be forcibly taking their own people and putting them in front. For example, do people really who use that word think that in the Polish ghetto that Jews that were militant and resisting the Gestapo took other Jews and put them in front of them, assured that the Gestapo wouldn't shoot them? Or did the Armenians who were fleeing the Turkish people, the militant Armenians that wanted to fight back, did they take other Armenian children and put them in and think, now the Turkish people won't kill? Of course not. So that doesn't happen what the Israelis are doing. They don't fit any imaginable definition of a genocidal power. It's very funny, too. There's a big debate going on, as you know, at UCLA. There's a chant, Israel, Israel, you can't hide. We caught you in genocide. But the thing that I was curious about is you have all these pro-Palestinian and Middle East immigrants and students and leftists, and they're all saying, we caught you in genocide, which is false. But they themselves have been advocating for genocide because they have a phrase, Palestine will be free from the river, the Jordan River, to the sea, the Mediterranean. Well, that just assumes the complete liquidation of Jews in Israel. So they're calling for it openly, and then they're saying, we caught you in genocide because you had the audacity to go back and hit us in Gaza City after we murdered 1,000 of your people. And we're calling our parents up and saying, hey, I killed 10 Jews. Allah Akbar, come on, great. And so it's surreal, it's la la land. And they think this is going to give them empathy. And only a society that was completely morally bankrupt would give them empathy. So there's something very sick going on there of this cult of hatred. Hamas has been autonomous, Gaza has been autonomous from 2005. And basically we were forgetting the Israelis under Sharon said, you export greenhouse industries for Europe, you're all getting out, it's not worth it. So fighting with Gaza, it's yours, take it. You've tried it with Egypt, we tried it, you're on your own. And they elected, as happens in the Middle East, a government, one election, one time. And they got Hamas. And yes, there are a lot of innocent Gazans, but the 1988 charter predated that election. And in the charter, it says that they're not interested in negotiations. They're interested in jihad to destroy Israel. And they voted for it. There's a Western conceit that we project in a very paternalistic way what they should think and how they should. And why don't you just read what they write rather than to project what you think they should write? So we have a 1988, a Hamas charter. They've altered it a little bit for political reasons, but it's all there. And then we have the rantings of the people in Qatar who say, you know what, you stupid Western, I'm paraphrasing, but you thought you were going to get Singapore. We're not interested in Singapore. We're interested in killing them and pushing them into the And that's what we teach our children from an early age. So when you bring a little Jewish kid as a captive that's 4 or 5, they're going to get other children to sort of insult him while he's a captive. And that's ingrained deeply into it. And so the Western mind says, money coming from the Gulf, money coming from the UN, restored money from the United States, EU money, hundreds of billions of dollars in this small little enclave. It's going to be like Singapore. It has a beautiful beach, Hyatt, Regency. They're all going to be here. Western, they can export fruit and vegetables in the winter to Europe. They're not interested in that. They're interested in destroying Israel, period. And you can argue why they became that way. There were mistakes made, but ultimately, they have never had anybody in the West say, I will support you only if you have regular elections and you stop this hatred of Jewish people. And then if you do that, we're willing to help you, but not until, and we never had any conditions on them. Donald Trump came in and said, you support terrorists, we're not giving you the $700 million. And there was an outrage that he was cruel. But notice another thing is that I'm not necessarily happy about this fact, but Donald Trump came in and he looked at what we're talking about and he said, this man Soleimani is not only killing people in Iraq and subsidizing the strategies of Hamas, he's killing Americans. They did during the Iraq War. He's got to go. And he took him out and they said, you can't do that. And then he said, ISIS is an abomination. We're not going to put one troop on the ground to kill them, but we're going to bomb the proverbial SHIT out of them. And then he said, there's no reason that we'd give any money to people who support terrorism. The $700 million's gone. And then he said, for all practical purposes, they started these wars and they lost the Golan Heights and they used it to shoot down on civilians. And it's been Israeli since 1967, and it's not going to go back. And then he said, Jerusalem is the historical home of the Jews. It's Israel's capital. There's east and west. And each juncture he did that. They said, our foreign policy establishment, the best and the brightest, the most sophisticated, the Robert Malleys of the world, the Jake Sullivans, the Anthony Blinkens, the Brookings Institute. If you do one of those things, you're going to blow up the Middle East. Nothing happened. What blew up the Middle East? Restoring the aid, lifting the sanctions on Iran, sending them, agreeing to pay them $1.2 billion for hostages each, telling Israel, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, intervening in Israeli politics. Yeah, that gave the impression that the United States was distancing itself and favoring them, and that encouraged them to do what they did. And, you know, it's a funny thing about the human mind. Deterrence, or the ability to warn somebody that you're unpredictable, maybe slightly crazy, but warn somebody that we have the wherewithal, that if you're foolish enough to start a war, in a cost-to-benefit analysis, you will lose. And we'll show you before you do it how you'll lose. That is a humane mentality, and it saves lives. Appeasement or mollification, when you think, I just don't want to be harsh, I don't want to come across too bellicose, and weakness and guarantees war. And human nature being what it is, we damn the people who keep the peace, like a Reagan, and we worship the people like Jimmy Carter who cause wars, and Joe Biden and Barack Obama. And you know that as well as I do, Jan, about the Ukraine war. There was a reason why Russia went in during the Biden administration and previously during the Obama administration, and a weakened Bush administration, but when he went into Georgia, but not during the Trump administration.
Don't forget to subscribe to our Alerts newsletter, and you'll never miss an episode.